Mitch Keller's late season swoon continues. Johan Oviedo's back, and I took a trip to Altoona that reminded me why I love baseball in the first place and why rushing prospects tends to be a terrible idea. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You're listening to Locked On Pirates. I'm your host, Gary Morgan, and today we've got a packed show from the Pirates' latest loss to the Blue Jays and Keller's troubling trend to a refreshing night in Altoona, watching the curve and some exciting young talent. Plus, a look at the math behind the Pirates' chances of matching their win totals from the past two seasons. Let's dive in. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So the Blue Jays, looking for revenge from game one, where Paul Skeens kept them in check and the bullpen kept them in check, and they threw the game away. Well, they had an opportunity to go up against good old Mitch Keller. Pirates lose this one 7-3, and it was a messy game, but mostly because it blew up early. I mean, it blew up very early. Mitch Keller gave up 5 runs in the first 2 innings. He just didn't look like he had anything. And I'm the kind of sicko that went to that game in Altoona, didn't get home until a little bit after midnight, and then sat back and watched the recorded version of a Pirates 7-3 loss that I already knew the outcome of. Yes, I fast forwarded a little bit here and there, but I got the gist of it. And Mitch Keller in particular, I made sure I watched his outing. Awful. It's exactly what we talked about yesterday on the show. A continuation of this second half swoon of his, and boy, it just can't continue. This is not a guy that should be wearing out at this point. He's tried and true and tested as far as getting to these innings counts, and I just don't think that that's a worthy excuse to give him. I hate to pretend that or assume that he's the type of player that would basically stop giving full effort once he realized the team is out of any kind of contention race. He's a Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher, so that doesn't bode well for the second half of any season he ever pitches, right? That said, man, it's putting something definitive on tape. 3 straight years. It's going to be really hard to convince anybody that that's not a thing. How do you convince anybody to ignore their eyes and pretend that they haven't seen what they've seen? I mean, we're talking couldn't place his fastball, and the velocity. I'm not going to say it's down because I think he's purposefully always got his velocity kind of ramped back a little bit, but very, very inconsistent. Sometimes reaching into 94, 95, sometimes coming in at 91 even. 92 I've seen. That's not enough. Mitch has some really, really good options, but I'm not sure that he's got enough arrows in his quiver to get away with throwing a fastball like that, especially not in the locations that he's been leaving them in. He's been leaving some really tasty fat pitches just laying there. The Blue Jays are a good hitting team, and, so are the Brewers. I don't want to give him that excuse. Mitch Keller's supposed to be the type of pitcher that is there specifically to take down the good offenses. How many times have you heard good pitching beats good offense? So I don't want to just talk about the opponents being difficult and give him that kind of out. I don't think that's right either. But man, that performance last night, that should have scared you. It really should have. The bullpen didn't do great either. Johan Ramirez might have had the best outing. of his season. He was great. 3 innings, 3 strikeouts, no hits, just clean. And then they went to Colin Holderman. Boy, Colin Holderman just can't get out of his own. I wouldn't trust him to shave his own face right now. Like, there is nothing this dude is doing right. I think he's just barreling towards being non-tendered. I don't know what to say. He's broke. The stuff is great still, measurably great still. It's just not happening at this level for whatever reason. I wish I could tell you like that this guy's just like getting beat like death by 1,000 cuts, like, oh, it's this. It's guys are just reaching out at this really bad stuff and poking it out into the outfield, or man, just well placed seeing eye singles all over the place. But no, guys are making real good line drive contact off him. All of his pitches are landing in the middle of the zone, the ones that actually go in the strike zone. His strikes aren't quality strikes. They're right in the middle. And he's missing when he misses by a good 6 inches, a good 3-4 baseballs, and you're not going to induce swings that way either most of the time. I'm sure sometimes it's going to work, but more often than not, that's a recipe for getting drilled. That's a recipe for letting you get a guy to, a 2-1 count or a 3-1 count and then unleashing on something ugly in the middle of the zone. And more often than not, he's going to give it to you. And there's no positive spin there. I understand wanting to try him. I didn't understand necessarily what he showed in AAA that would have convinced them that there was something to see different than what we had seen before his injury and demotion. But I understand in principle wanting to try him. Just it isn't working up here. You certainly can't. This game was lost already, so it's not like I can't understand wanting to use him in this game. But I just don't think as a fan base we can be expecting him to do much better than what he's been doing. Again, the talent I really believe is there. Somebody else will take a shot on him. The arm talent's too great to see anybody just leave him on the scrap heap. But he's really, really performed poorly here. And just for whatever reason, I don't know if he got the yips or something, but it happened like mid-season last year. He was great early on last year. He really was. He was the bullpen early on last year, like when David Bednar was really struggling and everything. He was the one that made it okay. Chapman and Bednar came out the gate slow, and he looked good. He was the go-to guy. So it's really, really fallen apart for him. It really has. Kyle Nicholas had a wonderful season last year. At least I'm seeing signs from Kyle Nicholas that he is rebounding. He's warming back up to the task. He's getting there. This pattern stuff, it drives me nuts. Like, this is a known issue with Mitch Keller now. 3 years in a row. I don't know how you get around it. He's had plenty of rest. They've babied his arm just the way they have Paul Skeens. They've taken him out of games. They've tried to stretch his starts back. Around the All-Star break, they pushed things around and rearranged them so that he got extra rest. I don't think we saw them stretch him into 6, 7, 8 innings unnecessarily very often throughout the season. So it's not like they've been pushing him hard or riding him real hard. I expect better from Mitch Keller, and I'm not seeing it, and I don't understand what's missing in the second half. The peripherals are still there. Like, the stuff is there, the rotation's there, the spins. He's just not getting it done in game. Leaving too many fatties here and there. You get him a lead early on, I think you see a different Mitch Keller, but you shouldn't have to do that for somebody that you're calling a number 2 or number 3. I'd start worrying a lot less about Mitch Keller getting traded this offseason and start worrying a lot more about what the hell happens if we actually get in the playoffs, and this is one of the guys we're counting on. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about my trip to Altoona. I had a blast, and I think it was a good trip and just kind of a touch grass moment for me as far as baseball goes, because it's been a rough season to cover. Getting back in the minor league stadiums always resets you. We've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit me with a like. So Altoona was a lot of fun. I took my buddy Jim Stam. He's my co-host on Pirates Fan Forum. Little road trip out to Altoona. So shout out to his wife for letting him go with me, and my wife for being cool and letting me just drop everything and decide to go on a random Tuesday, a couple hours away. We went for Konnor Griffin's AA debut. That's what we were there for. A little less fanfare than I think we were expecting, or at least Jim was. I've been to a couple of these types of debuts in AA, and they don't tend to make a gigantic deal out of them. But I think, the number one overall prospect in baseball, the last time this happened was Paul Skeens. And, I think he was probably treated with a little bit more media coverage. I was a little bit shocked there wasn't a few more cameras there, if you know what I mean. There were some scout cameras I saw set up back where we were sitting and everything. That was one thing cool. We just bounced around the stadium. Like, we got good seats and everything, and then we just ended up sitting about 4 or 5 other different places and really checking things out from different vantage points. Konnor Griffin's debut was pretty good. He got a good cheer. I thought it was decent. He had, a broken bat single and a stolen base, RBI sacrifice fly later on. He's the youngest player ever for Altoona. So I'm not sure what I expected. I think Duce Gourson was somebody that really impressed me. And he was 3 for 3, slick defense at third, which surprised me. I didn't even know he played third, which shows how closely I've been watching him. He looked really, really good. Blazing speed, I thought. Stole a base. He was just really a pest all night. Good wood on the ball, though. You didn't see a lot of guys that really kind of made contact that turned your head. Duce Gourson did. That was one of the few. Another one that kind of piqued my interest was the guy who actually closed out the game last night after the Curve roared all the way back from being down pretty big to win this one 6-5 late. Tyler Samaniego came in to close this one out. He's 26 years old. He's had an inconsistent season, but man, that kid is a lefty that was touching 98 last night from the left side. And I don't know. I left that one game, just watching him and kind of wondering how much longer he was going to be down in AA. That arm talent's there. That could be interesting. His ERA is not good though, so that tells me that he's getting touched at times. I haven't watched him enough to know what is actually happening to him. 26 is very old to be in AA, but man, if you're hitting 98 from the left side, it's hard to believe somebody can't find some kind of a use for you, right? So I'd like to see him get a little bit more opportunity, or maybe at least just pay more attention to him moving forward. I haven't been. Termarr Johnson returned from the hand injury. He had gotten hit on the wrist with a fastball, or the hand with a fastball last week. Hadn't played since, and returned. He looked good. Had a hit. Ran around the bases. Looked pretty good playing defense, and honestly, pretty solid for a 20-year-old in AA. The ball comes off his bat really well. You can just tell the difference when you're looking around. Like, the purity of minor league baseball, it's such a contrast from Major League Baseball. And you always hear people that want everybody called up from these levels. Like, they read these stats and they just assume that they're all the same. I got to tell you, like, the thing that I noticed the most, and Jim and I, we spent some time sitting in the stands talking like we tend to, and one of the things that we both kind of noted, my goodness, it is a drop off in talent. It is such a drop off in talent. We might have seen, 7 players for both sides last night that looked like they might be major league bodies. Looked like they might have the capability to hit. Like the winning pitcher last night, Justin Meese, for the Curve. Really, I've heard of him before and everything. First time I've seen him in person last night. And we happen to be sitting down at field level when he's pitching. And his stats are great. He's got like a 2-something ERA. Like he's done well. Okay. But man, I turn to Jim and I go, is it just me, or is this like the scrawniest kid you've ever seen on a major league on a pitching mound? Like on a he is tiny. I mean, stick figure tiny and short. Like, I'm talking Zach Davies small. If you remember Zach Davies from back in the day when he was with the Brewers and whatnot. He was tiny. Ball's coming out of his hand pretty good. He's hitting 95. I don't know where it comes from. He's got no glutes. Like, it's nuts, right? But you look around and you realize, like, there's not a whole lot of guys that have that major league sound that comes off their bat. So there are a few exceptions to that. Like, honestly, Konnor Griffin, really, the ball sounds different. The sac fly, it's a big league sac fly. I don't know what else to say. It sounded like it. I mean, it was opposite field, like back to about 3/4 depth on maybe a 3/4 swing to make contact. That's just a different human being, and he's a different human being. He towered over just about everybody. Like, again, on both sides of the ball. Like, the size difference, I think, is the thing that kind of takes you aback first. And then just the sound off the bat. I can't tell you how many broken bats, flares off the handle, dribblers into through the infield that got through that would never get through in the bigs, and just, my goodness, the talent drop off is real. It really is. Like, I look at these numbers too, and you have to. That's all you have as a fan. You're looking at these numbers that these guys produce, and it's important to note that they're doing it against their peers. Well, I'm here to tell you a lot of their peers aren't. So Konnor Griffin has jumped 3 levels this year, and I don't think he's played one yet in which he didn't stand out physically and look like he could do things that other guys can't. I mean, I've watched baseball at all these levels. I've watched them at Bradenton. I've watched them at Greensboro. I've watched them. You can tell when a guy has more of that major league stuff to them, and when you see a guy that you can kind of tell is just filler. Like, this person doesn't have, like, Trace Gonzalez he's been touted prospect for the Pirates. They had him batting 9th in DH last night. I got to tell you, the swings he's taken, just undisciplined. Didn't really look like he had a plan up there. He's fast. I'll give him that. I think it's just a different thing. And that's a guy who's been a top 30 prospect. So I'm saying you can still be a guy that people think has a lot of talent, but the AA level, most of these guys aren't ready, and most of them, frankly, aren't ever going to be. That's just the reality that smacks you in the face when you sit there watching AA baseball. The standouts are apparent. They're the outliers. You can tell. You feel the difference. You smell the difference. But Konnor is different. He's going to keep moving. It was a fun game. Loved the environment. Loved the atmosphere. Loved seeing Jim. It was Jim's first time, so I love seeing Jim's face when Altoona comes out behind the outfield wall. A lot of fun, man. I recommend it to you if you haven't done it. It's good for the soul. Get your butt to a minor league baseball game. Don't have to be here. In fact, Altoona is playing up in Erie here in, I think, a week. Make the pilgrimage if you can, and see if you can recognize some of the same things that I do. See the talent difference. It's amazing. I'm not saying that you're going to turn into a Jared Triolo fan, but when you see the AA players, I think you'll look at somebody like Jared Triolo and be like, "Oh my God!" Okay. He at least looks like a major league player. He's big. He's It really struck me, and I don't know that I can explain it in any way other than get your butt there and see it. Not to mention, it's a great palate cleanser for a Pirates fan that has struggled and watched a lot of this bad baseball. Speaking of bad baseball, we've got more to talk about because there's still a season to finish, and the math is not lining up the way they'd like it to. Are the Pirates going to reach 76 wins this year, everybody? Does it matter? I mean, that's what they finished with the last 2 years. I don't think finishing with 76 wins this year would be the savior of anybody. But I also don't think it's very possible. They would need to go 23-12 the rest of the way. That is a .657 win percentage over the final 35 games. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that's not likely. Their current win percentage is .417. So if they play 500 baseball the rest of the way, they can get to 70 wins. And I think that might be a stretch. They'd have to win out from right now to finish with 88 wins. They could win out and not make the playoffs. Listen, the remaining games on their schedule don't bode well either. They've got the Brewers. Maybe we want the Cubs again, but there's other playoff contenders in there. There's no easy path to this. Ben Cherington's record, man, his win percentage as a GM is .411. No playoff appearances in 6 seasons, multiple 100-loss seasons, and a rebuild that's yet to show MLB results. Team offense right now, 30th in home runs with 84. That is ineptitude at a historic level. And 30th in runs scored with 427. Again, ineptitude at record levels. The funny thing is, I didn't host Locked On Pirates last year, but I definitely wrote a lot about it and talked about it on my other show. The historic nature of the Pirates' pitiful offense. And I think I've done it 3 years in a row. It just gets worse and worse, and it shouldn't get worse and worse, especially as you're adding talent. So not pleased with all of that. Is matching 76 wins even meaningful? Like, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, like 76 wins would get him fired just as much as 70, right? I think I think the sad reality of being a Pirates fan is looking back on things and realizing how fun 2023 was, right? It was a fun season. They felt like they tried that off season. Like they brought in, Carlos Santana and, even like, geez, I'm forgetting his name right now, but the other first baseman they got from Tampa, the Choi, that didn't play hardly at all. But I thought, man, that was like addressing a freaking problem. Needed a first baseman, so you went and got two. And boy, one of them really, really worked out. And like, man, they went and yeah, they got Rich Hill that year. That wasn't exactly what I would have done for a pitcher, but it was okay. And a lot of the other pieces of the rotation were starting to build around it and everything. And Kutch coming back, it looked fun again. Like, man, things are really and O'Neill Cruz got hurt and they still did okay. They still won 76 games and then they still traded away Carlos Santana and got those 76 games. So I think part of me thinks they went into that offseason thinking like, well, we're going to get Cruz back. And we traded away Santana and still got this 76 wins. Feels like if we just let O'Neill Cruz come back and just let everything else sit, we should improve. And lo and behold, they didn't improve in 2024. Like I think they forgot to account for the fact that O'Neill Cruz was going to need a little time to be O'Neill Cruz. Last year, returning from that injury, listen, I know the performance wasn't great, but he didn't even start trying to steal bases until like the second half of the season. And you could tell that he didn't know what he was doing with the swing, and everything that he had figured out against lefties before he got hurt mysteriously evaporated. So they didn't get the performance they wanted out of him in 2024, but I can't pin it all on him for them coming out with the same exact win total. And then what do you do when you get to year 3 of that scenario this year? And now you've got a pitching staff that is way more developed than it was in 2023. Much more developed than it was in 2024 even. And your offense just takes a dump. Your offense was terrible. Like historically bad. And the pieces that you didn't add are the glaring ones. They really are. I think that's probably what is most insane. I think O'Neill Cruz has had an underwhelming season again, but not to the point where he's crippled this season. Not to the point where he's a guy you want to flush or something. Just hasn't been like the impact superstar that you would have needed. But like the way that they built this team, I haven't seen any urgency since 2023. And I wonder why the urgency came then. Like, I wonder why they put more effort into free agency and acquisition in 2023 than they did in 2024 or 2025 when they had somebody like Paul Skeens coming on. And I think as fans, that's really where the frustration started. Is 2023 was interesting and fun, and then the off season heading into 2024, well, they did nothing. The biggest acquisition was that O'Neill Cruz was coming back. Oh yeah, you're gonna probably get Paul Skeens at some point too. And then Jared Jones was a surprise, but like that was 2024. It was like okay, I guess what we're expecting Paul Skeens and O'Neill Cruz to change everything. I mean, like that should get us an extra 5-6 wins, I guess, and What's the goal then of that? Like, are we looking at like 80 wins as our goal? I think you should shoot a little higher than that. We did hear them talk about, like, boy, look at what Arizona just did. That was right around that time period. And the mentality right then, you could tell, was let's squeak into the playoffs. Let's squeak into the playoffs. If that's where you shoot, you're going to fall up short just about all the time. And I'm still trying to come to grips with whatever the plan was coming into this year. You know, I saw some people want to kind of throw some forgiveness out there because Tommy Pham started hitting. Well, he hasn't hit home runs, and that's what they needed. They needed home runs, and they didn't acquire any home runs. And they've got light performances from the few guys they had who were supposed to hit them. It's a perfect storm. And it just, yeah, I needed the minor league game. It's frustrating, man. I mean, another game this afternoon. Kind of looking forward to it. Johan Oviedo, I think that's going to be good stuff. Whether it's Mitch Keller's fade, Oviedo's return, or the spark of youth in Altoona, there's always something to talk about with this team. And while the math might not be on the Pirates' side, the future still holds some promise, even if you got to squint way harder than he thought to see it. If they play it right, I think some players are going to get here. Thanks for listening to Locked On Pirates, everybody. I'm Gary Morgan. Let's go Bucks.